Serenade of Bittersweet Else. Journal entry number 1. The laughter Smith. Those who would give up essential liberty just to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. By Benjamin Franklin. He was too frank, wasn't he? Deep within the blue light district, the jokes on us stood alone defiantly, its neon lights flickering against the muted purple skyline of St. Francis. The club was more than just a simple speakeasy for laugh-smiths. It was their sanctuary of rebellion in a world that criminalized joy. Since the Great Division fractured what was left of California, the desperate nation of St. Francis had clawed its way to stability through draconian order. Among its many oppressive reforms was the Amusement Act, a piece of legislation that purged society of anything deemed frivolous or undermining public decency. Comedy, with its irrelevant challenge to authority, was among the first casualties. In this dystopian reality, laughter was policed by the use of patrol drones floating through the streets, their sensors tuned to detect the subtle moisture of suppressed chuckles. Neuroimplants punished emotional transgressions with electronic shocks, while comedians were labeled enemies of the state and thus named laugh-smiths. But in their shadowy corners of the blue light district, defiance flickered like a candle burning slowly alone in the dark. Tonight, Jack Falcon and Karolina Rivers had risked everything for the illicit luxury of laughter. The club's interior was dimly lit, its walls lined with faded posters of Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, and other executed laugh-smiths long ago erased from history. Jack and Karolina sat at the table near the stage, dining on synthetic lobster and buttery baked potatoes with chives, a rare indulgence that cost them more than they could afford. Karolina's royal blue dress shimmered under the holographic lights, and her emerald green jacket hugged her shoulders like armor. "Caught you staring again," she teased, her voice warm and inviting. Jack flushed, tugging at his collar. "Can't help it," he admitted, then gestured to the stage. "But this night's costing us half of our savings, so let's enjoy the show before we get raided and sent to the re-education camp." A spotlight illuminated the stage, revealing the comedian Dex Zext, clad in a patchwork suit of flickering neon panels and other bright colors. His exaggerated gestures and his toothy grin were perfectly calculated to rile up the crowd. "Welcome to the Jokes on Us, folks," Dex began, pacing the stage, "where freedom costs a cover charge and tomatoes double as ammo." Laughter rippled through the room, rebellious and unfiltered. Dex leaned into the mic, his voice dripping with mock sincerity. "You ever notice how everything's a subscription now? It used to be you bought something, and it was yours. Now my bed charges me a monthly fee just to keep my dreams private. And don't get me started on toilets. Mine sent me an email yesterday offering a deluxe flushing package." Jack bust out laughing, nearly spilling his drink. "Finally, someone who gets it." Karolina chuckled, her guard softening. "All right, Falcon, I'll admit, this guy's pretty good." The comedian's set grew increasingly chaotic, sarcastically mimicking a homeless man awkwardly humping a discarded mattress. Dex exaggerated every movement. "No rhythm," he exclaimed, thrusting his hips with joke emotions. "He looked like a fish out of water, so I called him Aquaman." The crowd howled, their laughter cutting through the oppressive air of the outside world. Not everyone shared the joy. A heckler lobbed a tomato at the stage, forcing Dex to duck. "Missed me!" Dex shot back, dodging another tomato. "Bitch, I've been dodging tomatoes since I started." The tomatoes rained down as the heckler doubled down, and Dex turned the chaos into comedy. "You throwing groceries at me, bro? Well, the joke's on you. I get 50% of all the tomatoes tonight." The crowd erupted in laughter, and Dex, emboldened, shouted, "If you're holding a tomato in your hand, then you're a bitch." Jack, unable to resist, hurled a tomato at lightning speed towards the comedian. Dex, he caught it in midair, raising it like a trophy. "Biatch!" the crowd yelled in unison, pointing and laughing at Dex, their chants filling the room with rebellious glee. Dex mock-bowed and grinning widely. "Fine, fine, y'all got me. But don't forget, I'm the richest bitch in the room tonight." The room exploded into unrestrained laughter, the sound resonating like a battle cry against the sterile silence of St. Francis. As the show ended and Dex bowed to a standing ovation, Jack turned towards Karolina, his eyes. "All right, it was worth it." Karolina smiled, her laughter lingering like an aftertaste. "Yeah, Falcon, it was worth every credit." The two melted into the crowd, their hands brushing briefly before they slipped out into the cold, silent streets. For a moment, the memory of their laughter was enough to keep the dystopia at bay. Subchapter: The Purple Sky. The club's sorry about that. The club's laughter echoed faintly in Jack and Karolina's ears as they stepped into the night. Outside, the city of St. Francis was cloaked in uneasy calm, its bones shrouded in the glow of the artificial moonlight. The metropolis was a marvel of human resilience and fragility, a bastion built after California succeeded during the War of the Schism, a protector, a prison, and a monument to the cost of survival. The dome overhead, known as St. Francis's Shield, loomed as both savior and jailer. It had been constructed after the war left the land beyond inhabitable, scarred by weaponized genetic modifications, environmental devastation, and unrelenting conflict. Inside, light thrived under a tightly regulated harmony, but the soul of the city had withered under censorship, surveillance, and the corrections inflicted upon dissenters. Peace was maintained through fearful compliance enforced by the silent eyes and ears ebbed in every corner. As they wandered into the Emerald District, the air grew heavier, quieter. This pocket of eco-friendly design offered a brief respite from the city's mechanical sprawl. Towering, genetically modified artificial trees with metallic branches and leaves swayed in the dome's controlled breeze, their artificial leaves shimmering upon the soft artificial glow. Beneath their beauty lay the cold truth. Even nature had been engineered to fit the system's needs and stripped of its wildness like everything else in St. Francis. Jack and Karolina walked hand in hand, choosing to stroll rather than to take the automated walkways. The pathways hummed softly, their efficiency a reminder of the city's desire to erase effort and by extension the need for choice. But walking gave them a sense of freedom, however illusionary. Above them, the sky glowed a beautiful indigo, a synthetic twilight designed to comfort its citizens. The stars were mere projections, curated constellations meant to inspire hope and mimic the natural world. To Jack, they felt hollow, beautiful but false, much like the rose he plucked from a public planter nearby. The rose was exquisite. Its deep crimson petals glistened in the artificial light. Its stem free of thorns thanks to biogenetic engineering. Yet, the absence of pain made it feel incomplete. Turning to Karolina, he offered it to her. "For you," he said softly, his voice tinged with melancholy. She smiled, tucking the rose into her reddish-brown curls, where it complemented the molten copper sheen of her hair under the streetlights. "Thank you," she whispered, her fingers brushing his as he took it. For a moment, the weight of the city seemed to dissolve, replaced by the fragile beauty of their connection. They continued onward. After a while, they reached the park's entrance. There stood a minister of Amori, waiting, her pink dreadlocks framing a face marked by the weariness of the city's spirit. Dressed in a tailored robe, embroidered with love, she held a sign that read, "Give to love, love to give, Amori." Her presence was an anomaly in this world, where love is deemed a private indulgence, often seen as a distraction from societal order. Yet the ministers of Amori persisted, offering fleeting moments of wisdom to those who sought them. Jack handed her $50 with a playful grin. "Teach us something about love," he asked. The minister's eyes gleamed with an ancient knowing. "Love," she said softly, "is the most bittersweet of all the great L's in life." Karolina, feeling moved, added another $150 to the donation. "For the lesson," she said, "and for hope." The minister smiled, her voice warm. "May our Amori guide you to new beginnings." Inside the park, rows of genetically perfected flowers lined pristine paths. A pond at the center mirrored the artificial moonlight, its surface still and flawless. Karolina began to sing, her voice intertwining with the melodies of engineered birds perched among the branches. Jack watched, captivated as her song imbued the space with authenticity the city seemed to lack. Taking her hand, he murmured, "Your love is like water, breaking down the hard and softening the stubborn, and having the strongest pull. Let me be your moon so you can reflect my light and illuminate the darkness of this world." She smiled, her caramel brown skin glowing under the silvery moonlight. "Let's go home," she whispered, grounding him with her presence. A little while later, back at her apartment, the rose rested on the bedside table, its delicate petals casting soft, flickering shadows in the indigo glow filtering through the dome and the cracks in the window. It stood as a symbol of their defiance, a fragile beauty surviving against the suffocating weight of conformity. Karolina's small place was a mixture of personal mementos and government-issue furnishings. As they settled in, they entered the cozy living room, shredded their outer glares as they went. Jack found himself drifting through the world outside. Could their love endure in a place designed to suppress individuality? He mused. Sensing that her love was lost in deep thought, she pulled him back into the moment by pressing her warm lips against his. While looking into his eyes, she caught his lingering gaze. Laughing softly as she moved her long hair and began removing the clothes to reveal that her body was a masterpiece, complemented by long legs, curvaceous form captivating him entirely. She drew closer, her hazel eyes set like diamonds on a milky canvas looking into his. They began touching each other, their movements slow and deliberate, savoring the growing intimacy. "Stay with me," she whispered, something into his ear. Her voice was so soft it was hard to hear, but powerful enough to make him smile from ear to ear. Guiding his hand came near. She let him explore her warmth, her desire, her pleasure, as their connection deepened with each synchronized breath. Jack lifted her effortlessly, carrying her to their queen-size bed. After gently placing her, he began kneeling and worshiping her with his touch, his tongue tracing intricate patterns that elicited soft gasps and moans. Her thighs trembled, her body responding to every movement, creating a harmony of solace they found in each other, desire growing as they took her fully into her, as she took him fully into her. Together they moved with an unspoken rhythm, their passion built steadily, harmonized with the music playing softly in the background. Karolina began to sing between the breaths, her voice soaring in falsetto. "Love without you is like a word with no vowels. My head's in the cloud, trying to figure out how I'm supposed to love without you. Don't you know your love is the missing piece?" Her voice, sweet, falsetto, elevated the melody entwined with their rhythm, her voice blending seamlessly with the harmony of their bodies. Together they reached new heights of pleasure, their love igniting like a flame against the quiet backdrop of the night. She could feel their love grow into a quiet rebellion against a city that sought to control even the intangible. As their melody climaxed, she stared out of the window while she rested her hand on Jack's chest. Her mind shuddered as it drifted to the thoughts of the world made up of the cold conformity of many unseen eyes, cold and unyielding, always watching, leaving no moment of respite untouched. Even now, she thought, Jack could feel her body tense. Is everything okay? Everything ever feel like something's watching you? Yeah, whenever I'm in St. Francis. Jack gave her a cheeky smile. Karolina placed her face to his. Let them watch. She kissed him passionately as they resumed their rhythm, embracing until the cold world pulls them apart. Subchapter: Rock Bottom. Beneath the dome's indigo sky, a shadowed figure finished watching Jack and Karolina. He vanished into the distance, their laughter a faint echo in his mind on the sterile streets of St. Francis. Crimson eyes glowed with sorrow as tears carved paths down his weathered face. Rock Bottom. Beneath the dome's indigo sky, a shadowed figure finished watching Jack and Karolina. He vanished into the distance, their laughter a faint echo in his mind on the sterile streets of St. Francis. Crimson eyes glowed with sorrow as tears carved paths down his weathered face. With a heavy sigh, the figure turned away, retreating to a car parked under the lonely glow of a street lamp. The vehicle hummed to light, its dashboard casting muted hues across the driver's gaunt features. A haunted melody spilled from the speakers, wrapping itself with the air like a ghost. He continued crying as he sang, I know I said I wouldn't call, but your love was all I had. I know I said I wouldn't call, but I just want to say goodbye. The figure's voice cracked as they sang along, the notes dripping with raw emotion. Unfiltered pain accompanied the bass in his voice. Every syllable was a wound, every phrase was a cry for something lost. They sang until the song faded, its mournful, soulful tune swallowed by the quiet streets as the car pulled into the shadow of the nondescript apartment block. It was generic in every way. The only thing about it that was special was the high rises and the signs of little luxury littered about. Inside, the dim light of the hallway flickered, struggling to stay alive as the door creaked open. The sharp click of tiny paws echoed across the apartment. Dayabout, a sleek deerhead chihuahua with caramel fur, brown, and white chest patch, sprinted towards the figure. His large, expressive eyes shimmered with excitement, and his pointed ears perked up as his tiny tail wagged furiously. Dayabout jumped up, his small but sturdy body pressing against his owner's legs. His loyalty was as fierce as his bark, which he used to deliberately ward off strangers and assert dominance over anything that dared to cross his path, be it another dog or even the vacuum cleaner. All right, I missed you too, Vicente said with a tired smile. Scooping up the little dog, Dayabout immediately began licking their face with fever, his stubby legs kicking excitement. "You're all I've got, buddy," he whispered, burying his face in the Dayabout's soft fur. The Chihuahua, though stubborn by nature, sensed his heaviness in his tone and nuzzled a little closer, his loyalty unwavering. "Good night, pal," he said, gently tucking Dayabout into his small, cozy bed, lined with a blanket that bore paw prints. Dayabout circled twice before setting in, his large ears twitching as he gazed at his owner with soulful eyes. In the bathroom, the figure caught their reflection in the mirror. From a jacket pocket, they pulled out a crinkled piece of foil, shaking out a fine whitish-yellow powder that glinted in the dim light. With the flick of a lighter, the powder turned to smoke, filling their lungs with a poisonous calm. They slid down on the cold tile floor, their breathing slowed, tears spilling over once more until they drifted into a fitful sleep. The alarm clock shrill, blared, ripping through the morning stillness. Groaning, they pulled themselves off of the couch where they had collapsed. Dayabout was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with a regal posture that betrayed his diminutive size. "Good morning," he said, looking at Dayabout. After letting Dayabout out for his morning routine and giving him a quick breakfast of kibble, steak, and a little bit of gravy, the figure stepped out the door, the weight of the day pressing against him. After a little bit of time traveling, he arrived at the soup kitchen. A moment later, at the soup kitchen, they moved through the motions, ladling the soup, passing the bread, and cleaning the plates. To the hungry, their smile was a brief ray of warmth in an otherwise cold world. "Here you go," they'd say softly, patting his shoulder or offering a kind word. Later, after leaving the soup kitchen, he spent some time at the park. Later, at the dusty field at the community park, it came alive with shouts of laughter as the figure coached a group of kids in the baseball game. Vincente's voice was steady, authoritative, and yet kind. "Life's like this game," he said, kneeling to meet the eyes of one of the kids. "Sometimes you'll miss, sometimes you'll strike out. But you keep swinging, all right? Never take it for granted." The kids cheered. The game ended, and everybody was waving as the figure walked away. Back at home, alone, Dayabout greeted him with his usual vigor, leaping up and down as though they had been gone for days instead of hours. not? Vincent said, his voice softer now. Diablo barked in reply, wagging his tail. Inside the dimly lit party, the hours ticked by in a quiet haze. The scenty revelers ran a hand through Diablo's fur, his crimson eyes staring blankly at a photo on the wall. It was an old picture of him in Karolina, taken during the simpler times. His throat tightened as he traced the edges of the frame with trembling fingers. "We were so young," he said, his voice breaking. Diablo barked, snapping him out of his thoughts. "Yeah, I know, buddy. You're all I've got now." Later, as he stood on the balcony, the city lights below blurred into a kaleidoscope of colors underneath the purple hue. "I'm so sorry, Karolina," he muttered into the wind, carrying his words into the void. For a moment, he imagined her face, smiling, forgiving, but then it was gone, and so was he. The camera feed from the street below captured only the silhouette of his final moments. Witnesses later claimed to have seen the figure fall, but no one knew what happened before the railing gave way. As he fell, the cityscape blurred into distinct streaks of light, the wind tearing at his hair. The ground rushed to meet him, but in that moment, he felt strangely free, as though he finally escaped something invisible and suffocating. An excerpt from Hymn of Hope by Leonardo, Corporador of the Ministry of Amorai. "Love is like matter. It can never truly be destroyed, only repurposed. Once we hit rock bottom, we become open to salvation." The Serenade of Bittersweet Hours.